It was the time that I started my career working as a journalist first time and went to the first IATA Symposium in Munich. Then it's a good coincidence to remember the 20 years of being in this industry, and then you afford me all these years. As we are moving forward, airline traffic, revenue, and probably profits too are expected to reach record levels this year. At the same time, environmental sustainability issues and shortages of staff in key operations are still posing significant threats. Are more headwinds or tailwinds lurking ahead in the following year? This Air Transport Symposium aims at addressing this important question in a thought-provoking and insightful manner, thanks to you that you are going to participate in the next 2 hours in this live discussion. The 2024 Symposium, entitled The New Reality, Dealing with Existing and Emerging Challenges, will host today all of you. Of course, this event will not be possible without the sponsoring of GIMAS, Gouvernement Moroccan de Aeronautique Spatiale, Frequentis, Lufthansa Consulting, and Embraer, and of course in partnership with my organization, Hermes, that I have all my board here today, including Nick, Angela, my president, and Mehmet and Andreas. Then this is all for me for now. Then the next 2 hours we have a fantastic moderator. There will be Ilias Maragkakis, who is the associate partner of Lufthansa Consulting and moderate the 2 really live discussions. Ilias, over to you.
Thanks. Thank you. Great. I don't know if I'm going to be a fantastic moderator, but I'm going to try to be a good one. So with that in mind, let's get started progressively with the first session. If I may ask Maria to join me here in the panel, and Arjan, please. Peter, finally you made it. That's perfect. Nice to see you. OTP as always, please, if you come. And finally, Evgenia.
Over there, or shall I squeeze over here?
No, over there.
You can sit over there. And,
got it. Thank you.
Great. So I think Kostas already mentioned what this discussion is about, and we have actually created 2 separate panels. The first one is about what the future holds from the perspective of airlines, of the operators of aircraft, or the manufacturers of aircraft. And the second panel, the second part of the discussion, will be from the operators of the infrastructure, those who accept that aircraft, accept those passengers and process them, and make all the big investments when it comes to infrastructure. So with that in mind, I'm going to start actually with some key questions when it has to do with how do you see 2024, considering how 2023 was quite a dynamic year. And Maria, can I start with you? You're with GIMAS. You can tell us just a few things also about yourself, your organization, because some people might not be fully familiar with. And then.
So GIMAS is the Moroccan Aerospace Industries Association, and in 20 years now we have 140 companies manufacturing parts and equipment and doing MRO. And my presence in different conferences is really to replace Africa as a key actor in the aviation world and aviation industry, because we have kind of a great success story, and this can be a great motivation to emerging countries of the South to really embrace this amazing industry. And we'll have a chance to explain it more later. But you have big groups like Safran, Elbers, Boeing, Embraer. Anyway, and we were kind of great support to other companies in these countries to really have best cost competitiveness. So we're kind of key player now in the supply chain world.
Great. So if you can also have a word from you, what is your biggest challenge in 2024, you believe?
Of course, we have the biggest challenge. Actually, we are victim of our success, because when we won, we had the ambition to develop an industry and aeronautics from nowhere. It was a big vision and long term. We set up all the infrastructures and training also for technicians. And today, because of the shortage happened after COVID, now they take our resources directly from our companies. And our challenge now is really to train more and to supply worldwide partners, if they wish, from Canada, France, and other countries, and Gulf countries also. They take our resources. So this year is the biggest challenge. Of course, there are many others.
Great, thank you. And Arjan, can I move on to you? I mean, of course, we know Embraer is a very big brand. However, you can tell us a couple of things about you as well as the biggest challenge for 2024.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, Embraer is we call ourselves the #3 OEM in the world. It sounds really big, but of course we're quite a bit smaller than Boeing and Airbus. We have roughly 5.5 billion revenue per year. About half of that is commercial aviation. Roughly a third is executive jets, and then the remainder is defense. I think everyone knows the history of the last couple of years that we were in talks with Boeing. That failed in 2020. We went seamlessly into COVID. So we had enough challenges over the last 5 years. And I think our challenge today is supply chain, if I'm honest. So talk about 2024, I think Kostas mentioned it at the opening, and I know there's a lot of work done on resources. I think that is the real underlying issue that we all suffer with, whether it's pilots, whether it's technicians, whether it's just producers. For us, most visible is the engine side, obviously. We're growing our business double-digit now year over year. We went cold turkey, we shut it off in COVID, and now we need to grow again. So that's a real challenge to do that. But we're also building less of our older E-jets and more of the E2s. So from our side, it is an increased number of E2s, and it is a growing number. So that together puts a lot of strain on supply chain and especially on engines at the moment. But 2024, that will continue. Having said that, we believe that on our aircraft, the issues are going to be less impacting because the type came to the market a lot later. We're a lot lighter aircraft, so we see less impact. Despite that, if you put everything together globally, that's where our challenge is.
Well, thank you. And Pieter, of course, IndiGo is quite a name. It's really expanding and became even more famous towards the end of last year with the huge order that was announced, actually a little bit before that. Just a few minutes also, a few things about yourself and IndiGo itself, as well as the challenge for 2024.
Well, thank you. Thanks for your kind introduction. Firstly, thanks Kostas for having me here, and nice to see you again and your lovely wife, Evgenia, sitting all the way at the back. So thank you for having me, and it's really very nice to be back in Athens and back with you. Yeah, as you mentioned, 23 for IndiGo was, I would say, a year of many new milestones and highlights. Of course, we got a lot of attention with the fleet order which we made, which was a significant one. Actually the largest one, I guess, from a single order that a single manufacturer. And that was on top of the planes which we already had on order. So we have an order book today of some 960 aircraft to be delivered towards the middle of the next decade. And I realize that sounds like a ridiculously high number, but if you look at the size of India and the potential of India, we believe that that's actually a very adequate number. So last year, in calendar year 23, we reached 100 million customers in a single year. That was up from 78 million the year prior. So that was a jump from one year to next with 22 million customers. Again, from a European perspective, I guess that those are numbers one could only dream of. But in India, it's a different dynamic and a different setting. I think that speaks to the potential of the country itself. India today being the 5th largest economy in the world, and predicted to be the 3rd largest economy in the world by the end of the decade. And that enables IndiGo to double in size. So our aspiration is to double in size towards 2030. So today we have 2,000 flights a day with a total of 100 million customers. We aspire to double that towards the end of the decade. And again, it looks like a very significant jump. It is a very significant jump by any standard. I mean, we train 2,000 people a day. We've got a new plane coming in each and every week. So again, very different dimensions than in many other parts of the world, but in India we can manage that. Having said that, sort of the the market is still in a very early stage of further development. So we continue to build on that, and indeed 23 got a lot of new highlights, and clearly whatever was COVID has been left behind for us in last year.
Thank you very much, Peter. I'm just going to go now to Evgenia.
That's right, another one. Easy one for everyone.
So from SkyTeam,
Yes.
if I can also ask from your perspective to give us the first highlights, if you like, and also just a couple of things also you do SkyTeam.
Oh, again, Kostas, thank you very much for having us again and me for the first time. I'm looking forward to saying hi and introducing myself to everyone here. I'm a new face at SkyTeam, and my role is in marketing and sustainability. So I'm going to mention a very interesting challenge that I'm brought in to try to resolve and in any case work on, and that's sort of a dichotomy of two very opposing dynamics that's happening. On one hand, we are all expecting a huge increase in volume, in traffic, in customer expectations, and also the customer expectations are evolving in general, the behavior is evolving. And on the other hand, this push for sustainability or this negative image and reputation that the aviation industry is facing in terms of being one of the contributors to CO2 emissions worldwide, which is about 2.5% today. Yeah, what do you do? How do you resolve that? SkyTeam is not an airline. It's an alliance. We represent the interests and the needs of our member airlines, 19 today, and we're looking at where can we go as this kind of group of airlines? How do we evolve the industry? How do we evolve our product on the technical side, the technological developments that SkyTeam is working on, and at the same time, so to support the growth and to support the changes in the customer expectation, the customer experience. And at the same time, how do we take into account all this big change that's happening in the industry, and the fact that actually nobody is yet in the right place to resolve it. We don't have enough stuff in the world, it's not even produced enough, it's expensive, and the midterm outlook is not very positive. How do engines evolve to support the development and fuel efficiency, and what can we as an alliance do to kind of accelerate this move towards sustainability? You all know HOPE, and if not, I will enlighten you. We have the Sustainable Flight Challenge that's happening now for the third time in a row, and it's a fantastic initiative. It gives us both the energy to continue and really strive for improvement. At the same time, we have to fight this disappointment because we just cannot make the move fast enough. We cannot accelerate the industry fast enough. So how and this dichotomy, this kind of tension of what we have to do and what we're able to do is what's driving us today and what's giving us energy to do what we're doing.
Thank you. Speaking on the topic of sustainability, in Lufthansa Consulting we had a very interesting graph. Shiva cannot show it, which actually shows that the discussion of sustainability was quite high up pre-pandemic, and then of course it started dropping. I'm always talking about sustainability versus aviation. But then what is very interesting is that the discussion on flight delays started. And what you can see is a close correlation that the more you discuss about flight disruption and flight delays, the less you discuss about sustainability. So of course the question that really comes up is, how about when the system stabilizes and there are no longer these big delays, will the discussion come back on sustainability and on issues like it was back then, if you recall, like flight shaming and all those things? Are we, is SkyTeam with its members preparing for such an eventuality? Do you believe it might happen, or do you believe the discussion has become more mature?
It's not gone. The discussion is not going. You're completely right that, of course, if there are irregularities in operations taking place, they always come first. You always have to address those AROPs first things, that just comes into the agenda and you have to fix them. But the sustainability discussion, of course, I live in the Netherlands, that's where the mindset, in Northern Europe in general, there's a lot more mindset, a lot more pressure from the customer to look at that more carefully. But even in other areas of the world, we notice this pressure is increasing, and maybe it will catch up in 5, 10, 15 years. But that topic is not going anywhere. It's going to continue. We've just had that discussion on the global warming in the car on the way here, because you know in Montreal it's 10 degrees and in Bratislava it snowed this winter. So that discussion, whether we like it or not, it's not going anywhere. So we are being preemptive in some respect, and yes, in some areas, yeah, it's not playing that big of a role, but it will. And I think because there's so much work to do in that area, we might as well pick it up now and start making as much progress in this as we can. I am somewhat pessimistic about it. I don't want to say that, okay, we're going to solve all the problems, we won't, but not doing anything is also not an option. We have to do something. So yeah, and we have to balance it against the business objectives as well. I mean, the world has to fly. We need to continue to connect the businesses and the nations and the world, so that's not going anywhere. How do we balance it out is the big question. Yeah.
Ilias, do you allow me to throw a little bit
Yes,
of
please.
fire in this discussion?
Yes.
This whole flight shaming thing, I don't believe it's from the consumers at all. If the post-COVID recovery has demonstrated anything, is that the consumers just want to fly. All the predictions in 21 and 22 were, you know, the recovery should be at 25, 26. Look what happened last year. Many markets, including the one I'm coming from, are back to pre-COVID levels, if not higher. And the markets which aren't, are not driven by a lack of consumer interest, but are driven by a lack of resources, planes, people, engines, whatever. So I think this whole flight shaming discussion, it's a nice topic for the media, but the average consumer just wants to fly. Again, whatever has been demonstrated, pretty much every part of the world post-COVID is just showing that. That doesn't take away any of the efforts which we should take. It doesn't take away any of the efforts we should make in order to make it more sustainable. But flight shaming itself, it's a nice invention in the media, but it's not in the minds of 99.9% of the consumers.
Not yet, yeah.
Sorry?
Not yet, no. Yeah, I think this, as time progresses, it might evolve. I don't know how and when, but I agree. When business comes first, so your personal goals come first, you will fly if you need to fly. Of course, that definitely is the case.
Well, not even business alone. Also, people wanted to go for holidays. Also, people wanted to visit family and friends. It's just a great way, a great modality of transportation.
Absolutely.
And even in emissions per person, I mean, all the proof has been done. I mean, you come from Amsterdam, flying from a plane from Amsterdam to Nice, you have less CO2 emissions if you are in a full plane than you drive with two in a car.
And, yes, and from our side, like, we are a bit shocked when we see this aviation bashing and like impacting countries from Africa or India or developing, and we need to travel because for us it's also development, it's opportunities, it's training you can get. So for us it's like an exclusive way, the way the media talk about it. It's kind of exclusive, like if you don't have the right to development. While we see it in our geography, in Africa, even in India and Asia, it's more suitable to have aviation. It's so easier, and I think the revolution, even for like aircraft like Embraer, is more suitable to this kind of geography. And it will come. But the day it will come, it will be really amazing. That's the belief we have, because we aspire to development, to globalization, that it goes with traveling to and having different accessibility to education, to many things. So this is why, and COVID, now I don't talk more about sustainability as we used to back to 4 years ago, because aviation industry did the job. They're no more talking about what kind of engine I will be building. They started because otherwise they will be very late for 2030 and 2050. And same for the SAF. So there is immediate solutions, and the question where you can find it. So there's no more like decrease in the critical where you have to build the industry. It's already done, and even our airline is developing SAF for itself. And so for me, it's now we see the future. With sustainability, we already started launching what we had to do.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good point, and Pieter's absolutely right. I think it already shows in the the CO2 compensation that people can buy on an airline side, you've seen it personally as well. If you look at the number of people that actually spend money on buying the CO2 off, it is a fraction. People are not doing it. So the say-do relationship is completely gone. But I think the good thing is we discuss about it. I think as a company, and I'm sure as an industry, we've learned a lot what's possible with technology in the next couple of years. One big thing I learned is it's going to take a lot longer than we all would like to see. It's not going to be easy. And we can do some things in a really small segment, but that's not where the fuel burn is burned. It's the wide body side, and there are no solutions anytime soon. If anyone who tells you we're going to fly hydrogen in the next couple of years, it's not going to happen. So we're going to need SAF. It's going to be a long road. There is an issue, but I think the big discussion that we need to have in this group, and I think that's why this is a great group of people together, is what's the narrative that we have to the market about the real problem, because it is 2.5%, and solving the CO2 of aviation is basically starting with the highest apple in the tree. Right? So there's, on a global level, it's the most difficult one to solve. And I think a lot has already happened, because fortunately, what has driven us for the last 100 years is reducing fuel. And a nice by-effect of that was that CO2 was reduced. And that's a continuing story. We now build engines that have, or aircraft and engine combination that have 25% fuel burn less than the previous generation. So, and we need 42,000 aircraft that need to be replaced in the next 20 years. There's not going to be hydrogen, there's not going to be electric, maybe a little bit of hybrid. So we just need to continue what we're doing. If we all stop now doing that because we all think that new technology is going to bring improvements, then I think we're going to do things that's even worse for industry.
So it's very interesting that you mentioned exactly this, that actually the majority of passengers, when they're asked whether they care about sustainability, they say they do.
Yeah.
But when you go down the list of did you do anything about it, actually from the 80% that they care, only 1.9% have ever paid anything as a CO2. So with that in mind, we see that the priorities, also the real priorities, are actually different, at least for the immediate future. So we all remember a couple of airline CEOs who mentioned in the last few weeks, not sustainability, but rather the lack of aircraft, and that's why prices are going to be expensive for people to fly, especially in Europe. So I was wondering, as Embraer, and knowing and looking at your colleagues who also produce aircraft, how do you think the industry will be able to surpass this? Is there something changing the horizon within 2024, or is it something that's going to take much longer than that?
Well, we believe if the growth continues as we are seeing before the crisis and now after the crisis, because we're basically picking up the same growth path as we had before. The industry has not produced aircraft over the crisis. We now see that for several reasons the industry is falling short of producing the numbers that we need to. So there's a big hole in the supply chain of aircraft behind us. It's not coming back. So if you do the math between now and the next 20 years, you'll see around 42,000 aircraft that need to be replaced. I think the manufacturers together can produce 2/3 of that if you add up all the numbers to that. So if you continue that growth, there is a big challenge ahead of us. So if you look at the backlogs out there, they now run into 2030. I'm sure there's a little bit of overhang in there, and maybe some overbooking, and maybe some leases that are available. But I think all the airlines, including IndiGo, orders of 500 aircraft, that fills up quickly. So I think that's a real upcoming challenge in the industry that will put pressure on prices upwards, which I think is good for the industry. So I think it's going to be an interesting time. But then again, we're going to have the curveballs that we don't know yet.
Yeah, true, very true to that. Speaking of which, Pieter, what do you think will be the biggest challenge in the next year for you and your growth plans, your strategy?
No, for us, again, we're privileged to be in a high growth market, and that market will continue to grow, and with the rise of India, air traffic will continue to grow, and for way too long, international travel in India has been sort of not ended up on Indian operated aircraft. So I think there's a great opportunity. Today we operate 32 destinations international. That's relatively small number as compared to the 90 we operate on a domestic scale. And that international travel will just continue to evolve. I think one of the big challenges, and there I should applaud the Indian government, is to have the infrastructure in place, and really new airports are being built. So there's going to be a second airport in Delhi, there's going to be a second airport in Mumbai, recently the second airport in Goa opened, the new terminal in Bangalore opened. So whereas in other parts of the world you see big discussions about, I mean, what's happening in Schiphol is a shame. It's probably one of the best airports in the world, which is going to be curtailed, or at least that's the plan, for just, let me call it political opportunism. And I think in India a lot of new airports and new infrastructure is going to be built, and that new infrastructure will really help in order to move forward in that part. So I think infrastructure is one. Obviously, OEM capacity, be it planes and be it engines, is another significant one. I must say, training and availability of staff for us is something we have a huge, I think Indian Prime Minister has called it the demographic dividend of India, with a young population and really an ambitious and inspiring population. So we're not facing shortages of staff we see in other parts of the world. We have challenges in training them, but again we do 2,000 trainings a day, which is a rather significant number, I would say. So infrastructure, OEM capacity. I'm a bit more optimistic on the infrastructure that's going to move forward. But again, there the speed, and I see my friend from Istanbul. I think that's another example where great infrastructure developments have been made. And infrastructure and OEM capacity is both needed for airlines to flourish. So I think it's something which is positive going forward, but obviously the timing of it is an important aspect.
Maria, if I can go to another topic, which is Morocco. We do not know Morocco as necessarily the biggest aerospace center in the world. We do know Air Maroc, it's a very well-known airline, and a couple of located MRO operations. Who do you think has, from your members, the biggest challenges ahead in 2024, and what is the promising future that is ahead for your industry?
Actually, we have 20,000 people working for OEMs and many SMEs, and we are, of course, in the midst of all the supply chain crisis that we live in. And half of what we do, we are single source in Morocco for so many equipments. We don't say it much, but it shows the viability of the industry. But of course, we're directly concerned with what's going on in terms of resources, of supply chain, many things. And the big challenge is to support SMEs, suppliers, financing, because they were at the same time out of a crisis, so treasury was very bad, and at the same time they had to do new developments and new products, so it was at the same time two things very hard for them to support for the future. So OEMs were so focused on delays and focused on the aircraft to deliver, but not so much on how the suppliers are very key really to support this. So we see it, and even for some OEMs, it's also strategic and it takes time to realize that it's easy to develop infrastructures, to develop new suppliers, to support them. So we have to change the mindset. We were in a comfort zone for many decades, and now many challenges at the same time, but then we don't see this flexibility, agility to adjust and to react very quickly.
Okay. Yeah. So Maria, you help Arjan. Arjan, you help Pieter, right? And if you help each one grow, then we can have a growth line in this family.
But I mean, it's just, I think, another proof point that aviation industry is a long-term industry. And whatever Morocco is building will bear fruit, I guess, in 5 to 10 years. Not tomorrow, but in 5 to 10 years, the rest of the world would look and would say, wow, that's impressive what has been built. That's why I think some of the more established economies, they should be very mindful on what do you do with it and how to make sure, because once it's gone, it's not going to get back easily, because you see the challenge. And again, India is also producing now parts and investing a lot in that part. In countries with a long-term view of safeguarding that production and the OEM capabilities. I mean, Arjan was proudly saying we're number 3 in the world. That just shows there's not 25 manufacturers. So there's just a handful of them. And if you want to have it, you need to have a long-term view and invest in it for a long-term view. And I guess that's what's happening. So.
Yeah, interesting point. And if I may, just to give, to get you also back in the discussion. And there's always a great interest when it comes to alliances, because you represent a lot of airlines. And whether you are in the driver's seat or you're simply in the support seat, what are the initiatives that you have ahead for 2024 when it comes to sustainability? Is this something we need to look out for? We're going to hear something in the next months?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, again, I completely agree with Pieter as well on the overall long-term view in aviation, because you cannot bring about any change in the course of 12 months, whether that's operations or sustainability or any other topic. So everything takes somewhat longer, and you have to work towards that longer term vision. I think with sustainability we have that similar approach. We're not trying to solve sustainability issues in aviation like across the board, the kind of blanket solution to everything. You can't, we've talked about it. But we are making those steps. So from the Alliance perspective, what we're looking at, okay, everybody's trying to do something, everyone's got ideas, everyone's got some innovations or some priorities. Some airlines are looking into joint staff purchasing, some airlines are looking at how to optimize their on-board experience, I don't know, operations efficiency. So what we are doing, one of our biggest initiatives is really allowing our member airlines to share ideas. And this year, in our Sustainable Flight Challenge, the main purpose is adoption. So we're really encouraging the adoption of all those different innovations that have been developed over the last few years. So what we want to see is, it's not so customer facing, we do communicate about it, but we're not doing it for the purpose of marketing or positioning for airlines or for SkyTeam. So a lot of it, you may hear about it, but it's done more within the network itself. So a lot of that innovation, adoption, knowledge sharing, education, etc., it's happening with it, and really building that knowledge base of what is possible in this industry. And we do find that there's just so many opportunities. For example, with KLM, they are moving away from, I don't know, diesel-fueled equipment on the ground to more electric equipment. But in Kenya, for example, they still use like old kerosene ones, and so we can, for example, share, even on that level, ship some of the equipment that's potentially not as efficient or considered less efficient in the Netherlands to other parts of the world where that can be. Small steps, I understand, but at the same time, there's just a lot of this kind of dynamic of knowledge sharing taking place, and I think that's our main purpose. Outside of that, there's just a lot of other initiatives from, again, we're looking into SAF and what can we do with it. Is it an alliance initiative, or is it really an individual airlines initiative? How can we work together on that or not? We're looking at ESG, we're looking at...
So interrupting, in SAF, what are you doing as an alliance?
Well, currently we're not specifically doing anything as an action. We're looking at what is the best role that the alliance can play in this, because in some respects it's more, we're not there to be the solution to all the airlines for all the different problems. We take the lead when it's necessary, and we take the step back when it's not necessary. So we're discussing with the airlines right now, what is our role, what can our role be? Do we want to go into joint staff purchasing? Or is it better actually not to do it and let, for example, regional agreements to take place and form outside of the alliance? So it's more, right now we're developing a strategy around that topic, but we don't actually take any steps yet.
Thank you. Therefore, what I see is that in this panel there's two, I wouldn't call it point of view, I would just call it two different gravities. I see from the side of Pieter, and I was discovering more about the dynamic development going forward, and I see, of course, it has to do also with the specialization that you have or the domain that you're working on. It's more about optimizing, changing a little bit the way we do things. And I want to ask you, Pieter, because you have both the experience of Europe and of Asia, so of, let's say, more conservative growth and much more dynamic growth. Do you think it's like a give and take? Is it like a balance between growing and being sustainable, or how does this work?
Well, I mean, different societies are in different stages of development, and some of the European countries are in a different stage of development, a different age of the population, different GDP per population, different. So there are different stages of development, and I guess that stage of development, and I think there's a formula which, I think this at one point in time, it's either Iatrou or IndiGo came up with that one. You know, on average, aviation is growing GDP times 2 plus a little bit. So if you take that point, and many European countries were to have what 2-3% GDP growth, some even less. So multiply by 2, and you come to what's the growth percentage. India is growing by roughly 7% times 2 plus a little bit. So the 15% of growth is actually a meaningful number. So it's I would say it's probably very much driven by what stage of development are economies, societies, and that is driving part of this discussion. And clearly, I've seen indeed the different sides of it, and it's also, I would say, a lot on, I think that's a question which is being addressed differently in different countries. What is our economic model for the country itself, right? Where do we want to earn our money with, and what role is transportation in that parameter? And I guess there's many countries in the world which have answered that question in a different way. In general, I would say, and where I came from initially, that was very much part of it. And the philosophy back then was, if you're a small country, it means you have a lot of countries outside, and you need to connect to them. And with that connection, you build economic relations, you build trade relations, you have an open economy, and so on. If countries at one point in time in their development choose a different channel, that's I guess for governments and politicians to take a call on that. I can only reflect to what I see now happening in India, where aviation is very much embraced as a catalyst, as an integral part of the growth for a country. And not only international, but also domestic. So we connect now to rather remote parts of the country in the northeast, and connecting that is generating a lot of positive spin-off effects. Hotels, businesses, visitors, both domestic and foreign, and that is all sort of creating that positive momentum of aviation. And I would say it's great and inspiring to work in an environment where that is embraced to such an extent, and where there's a lot of room to follow a pretty much entrepreneurial approach by adding dozens and dozens of new routes, and basically enabling people who used to travel for like 2 days in the train are now 2 hours in a plane. And that philosophy is just bringing the country forward. And if you were working in Mumbai, you had to go to Bihar, it's like 36 hours by train, now it's 2 hours. So what does that do for economic growth? What does it do for connectivity? What does it do for SMEs? It's a very optimistic scenario. Does that take away any of the other concerns on sustainability? We have the youngest fleet in the world when it comes to airlines, with more than 100 aircraft, so we have the lowest CO2 emissions on that field. And I think we work a lot with the air traffic control. I think that's the if I may use the word hypocrisy in Europe. We speak about sustainability every day, but yet 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, we're still not having a single European sky. We talk about it and talk about it. I talked about it in the past and without any success. So Evgenia, maybe you can be of more success in that. But it is just not an inch of progress. So I think we should also look in what can be done, and that's much cheaper than any SAF. That's much cheaper than any development of a new engine. It can be done pretty much overnight. The political willingness is there. It can be done, and yet it's not done. So I think if certain environments are just more open for that change and are really putting money where their mouth is, and then I stopped about India. A lot of initiatives are taken there when it comes to hydrogen.
Yeah.
I cannot be more upset for people coming over and saying, no, nothing is happening here. That's happening a lot. I would then to say that's happening comparable, if not better, than some other parts of the world. So really big investments are being made in hydrogen, in solar power, in having all these new technologies. And so again, I think it's very much a mindset of, do I look at it as a problem, or do I look at it as a sort of opportunity, or as a next wave of moving forward? So yes, I'm optimistic, and it doesn't take me any effort to be optimistic.
Perfect. Arjan, you have a global footprint. I guess as a company, so I guess with what Pieter said, do you agree? Do you see the same differences between all the different worlds? What do you see as a manufacturer?
Yeah, it's interesting because we're talking about Western Europe, which is where I live, but a Brazilian company is what I work for. Brazil is very similar to India if you look at connectivity, the way they build airport, the way they want to make sure that the airport accessibility is not more than a certain time from everyone's home in Brazil. It's a complete different drive, and I think there's two developments in parallel, and I don't think one's going to stop the other. So the drive to economically develop globally is going to happen, right? It's easy to say in Europe and the US, no, we can slow down a bit, yeah, but we're already miles ahead. And that's why Embraer we said we're not going to launch an aircraft, but we presented the Energia family, which is a couple of concepts. The reason for that is not that we believe we can build that tomorrow, but we said the first thing is we want to show as Embraer as one of the leading manufacturers that we're interested to talk to partners what's possible, because there's a lot of startups dreaming, promising the world, and they're promising things are going to happen tomorrow because they need funds, so they need to be uber optimistic, but it's not realistic. And we said we want to be realistic, talk to them. Secondly, we said we want to have the conversations with the airlines of how can we operate those aircraft in a different model, because if we do what we did in the past, which is kill all the 10-seaters, 20-seaters, 30-seaters, 40-seaters, if we keep doing that, then we really need to look at the bigger solutions. So are we going to do things differently to come to a different place? Well, that's possible, but that's a conversation we want to have. And really understand what's technically possible. We've learned a lot there already, so we know flying on batteries is going to be really far away. We have eVTOLs that we're developing in our company, even in the US. It's a 4-seater plus a pilot on batteries, 100 kilometers range. Very interesting concept, but it's not solving any of the problems that we have as an industry because we didn't do it in the past. If you go to 10-seat, 15-seat batteries, it becomes really, really difficult in aviation grade. So you have to think hybrids, and then you move to hydrogen. And that's apart from where we're going to get the hydrogen from. Working with hydrogen on 30,000 foot in the air is a challenge as well. So we're in a learning process, and I think that's a big step of the discussions that we're having. But I don't think you should hold back one because of the other. And I think that's what we're seeing, unfortunately, on Schiphol, the discussions about shrinking airports and noise. I mean, you do one thing, you kill your own chicken with the gold eggs, and traffic will go somewhere else. Right? So that's really not the solution. So I believe it's two paths. We can't stop working on them, but we're going to keep flying. I'm pretty sure about that.
Interesting. Yeah. So before we go, because we will have time for at least one question, I just want to ask all of you, each one of you, if possible, to describe 2024 in 3 words. Just 3 words that come to your mind. You haven't prepared for this, I haven't asked before. 3 words that you believe are going to be describing 2024. Pieter?
Boy. Okay. Do you allow me to say 2 super exciting? Again? Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Super exciting, 2 words.
Great.
Super exciting.
Yeah, I think I definitely start with opportunity. I think that the talk for Embraer, there's a lot of opportunity out there with the products that we have for the market. I will also mention challenge, because there are a couple of challenges that I think we're really going to solve now. Issues are getting better, but we're not out of the woods yet. If you want a third one, you have to wait a bit longer.
I'm going to say opportunities with challenges. So there you go. There's going to be 3 words.
Yeah, that's
You must be a consultant, right? You summarize his words in a better way.
Now I need to pay for it.
Kostas will do that.
Maria?
I would say it's time for a revolution, the way we think the future of aviation. Really, because I think we still need we have to build new narratives, we have to focus on territories, the passenger, and go out, not having airlines and decision makers talking together but not having any sense of reality and realism. Because we need the support really in our territories for civil aviation, for training, for many things.
Sure.
So development will not happen just like this. If you not want to happen, if you want to have Embraer in Africa because it's perfect, help us. Develop territories, support civil aviation, trainers, and it will happen.
Let me help
Many
you. So
words.
it's 3 words. Time for revolution.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we will not be televised. That's what I know also. And Evgenia, if I can ask also for you some keywords for
I just have
2024.
one word. I had a little moment to think, and I decided to just stick to one word, and that's energy. I find that post-COVID is just, it combines with opportunities and revolution and everything. There's this upward momentum. There is something happening, and there's a lot of energy, a lot of drive, a lot of passion everywhere I look. And I think if we can, utilize that momentum, utilize that energy, we can direct it in whatever direction we need to direct it. But in that way, it's very positive. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We have time for just one question, if I can ask. Yes, please answer that. Yes.
Well, kind of picking up on what Maria and Evgenia said, I wanted to ask about not 2024, but more like 2030. There were a lot of emerging trends out of COVID, and it's unclear to me how many of those are going to continue. Are they going to kind of straight line and accelerate? Are they going to just go away? Or are they just going to be a new normal? And I'd like to hear from actually all of the members. What do you see in 2030?
So, Peter, can we ask start
And
with
that's
you?
an ish.
The other way around.
'Ish. The other way around.
Yeah.
I wanted to give you more time to
Okay.
think if you
I
want to say
will,
something.
no, that's okay. I will move away from the topic of sustainability for a second, because that's of course not the only hat I have to wear. I do believe in a super boring but better customer experience. And I think that we need to look towards Asia, look towards China, maybe India, towards economies where there's just a lot less regulation, or maybe not even regulation, but just things are a bit less difficult. So that we can take a lot of that on board, whether that's biometric, or that's just how everything is more connected or seamless. We somehow, we have everything that we need to build a really beautiful, seamless experience for the customer that enhances that aviation experience, which is already amazing in itself, but we're not utilizing it. If you look at the back end of it, a lot of that experience is still completely patched up with tape and broken up, and it's not all that seamless at all. So I think that we have a lot of opportunities there. Whether that's a trend coming from COVID, I would probably not think that that's what it is, but I think that's where it's going, and I hope that we have the opportunity to really utilize that, really grab that opportunity and look at what's happening around the world and bring that, into, well, in my case, into the alliance a bit more.
Thank you. Okay. Maria, if we can.
Actually, we didn't talk today about events happening at Boeing, I think are important. We should not minimize, because it can affect all the industry, all aircraft manufacturers, or the trust on the aircraft you're going to fly. So I believe trends for 2030, aviation is living a revolution with VTOLs, with many things, and passengers will become more and more exigent in the way they want to travel. We feel like today we are banished, because of course when we go all in business class you don't live it, but when you live a normal travel, even low cost, we need to change the way we travel, from the passenger to arrival, with airports, with all the things, because it's so sacralized and they forgot about the basic comfort of passenger that is paid for us. So for me, if there will be the other back punish kind of passengers will get the power to impose new ways of travel.
Okay, interesting. Arjan?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think if there's one change post-COVID, I think the world is getting smaller when you talk about connectivity. We see that in losing our engineers to other companies, because in the old days they had to travel, but now they can do a lot of work from home and work for another company. And I think although geo-economically things are not getting easier, at Embraer and in Brazil we really believe in partnerships. So addressing your point as well, we're very active. We're talking to Morocco, we're talking to Turkey, we're talking to India, we're talking to China. So we're really looking at how can we work together and tap into the knowledge areas and the production facilities globally, and to work more together, because just to lean on your own little background is not going to be enough. So that is an initiative we've been talking about for quite a while, but I think if we look forward to 2030, you're going to see a lot more of that, for sure from our side. So we want to now really grow from what we say, Brazilian company with a global presence to a global company.
Thank you. And Pieter, just to...
Well, thank you, Angela. I didn't see you yet. Hi. You know, candidly, I've never believed in any of the projections when COVID hit that it would change the world forever and we would all stop flying and stop going to offices and stop hugging each other, and that would all stop. I've never believed that any of that would materialize. Again, I think it was nice to talk about, but none of these predictions have happened, really. I think what has happened is a lot of emerging trends have accelerated due to COVID. So I think all the big predictions that the world would change and people would no longer fly and all that has proved to be totally wrong. But emerging trends were accelerated, be it on digitization, be it on parts of the world where sustainability has sort of overtaken some of the economic discussions, be it on parts of the world where retirement has really led into shortage of manpower, and all the thousands of people who left the industry are difficult to get back for different reasons. So I've seen it actually mostly as an acceleration of trends which were already there. On an economic or macro level, gravity shifting east has further accelerated. I mean, the plane orders we did, but also our competitor India did. There's just a sign of what's going on. So that whole gravity moving east, digitization, sustainability in a different balance with economic prosperity. I think these trends have just accelerated rather than anything else. So no new trends, just an acceleration of existing trends. And therefore, I think the winners of tomorrow, consolidation is another thing, what's happening in Europe especially. So what the winners of tomorrow are those actually who are best in addressing these accelerated changes.
So with that in mind, and just to summarize, it's a super exciting opportunities, right? Revolutionizing energy. That's great. Well, it has been
with some challenges.
With some challenges.
That's
yes,
the OEM in the room should address the challenges, right?
So just a few.
Well, it has been a very interesting discussion, and I want to thank you very much for making it so interactive. Please, ladies and gentlemen, join me in